History is written by the victors. Winston Churchill said that, and in many ways he was right. But today's historians are focused on getting a more nuanced view of the past. History is complex. Events are complex. Humans are complex. Let's meet some people focused on bringing us the rest of the story today on Hometown. Have you ever discussed an event with a friend who experienced it from another perspective? Perspective is a powerful part of the human experience. It shapes how we see the world, feel about ourselves, and perceive others. Sometimes it even gets us into arguments. Finding out something that may not be as black and white as we thought can be frightening. That is often true with history. Introducing different perspectives on history helps us see the bigger picture and learn ways to love our neighbors and, more challenging, our enemies. For most of my life, I heard the stories of the mission at Waiilatpu from a single point of view, the Whitman and Sager perspective. Today we meet people adding additional perspectives to that story, and it's fascinating. Let's learn more about the Walla Walla tribe and the Whitmans and how and why their worlds collided. And let's explore the importance of perspective, a fundamental ingredient in the remarkable story of us.
Learning about people and cultures and countries, it's so important, Bobby, and thank you for being here with us on Hometown.
Glad to be here.
So, Bobby Connor, you are the director here at Tamástslikt, am I saying that correctly?
Tamástslikt
Cultural Institute, and it is such a pleasure to be here on Hometown and to learn, and we thank you for this opportunity. And where are we right now?
Tamástslikt Cultural Institute is the name of our tribal museum, and it represents the history and cultures of the Cayuse, Umatilla, and Walla Walla peoples who have called this place home, southeastern Washington and northeastern Oregon, for all of our history since time immemorial. The Cayuse, Umatilla, and Walla Walla peoples have lived in this homeland and taken care of this homeland, which is roughly 6.4 million acres. Wow. And the footprint is now reduced to the Umatilla Indian Reservation, but we still consider the entire 6.4 million acres home, whether we own it or not.
So the gallery, the Institute, is set up into 3 sections, and where are we right now?
We are in the We Were Gallery. It begins with Coyote Theater, the story of time before humans were here and the Animal Council, and then goes to the seasonal round, which represents how we've lived for more than 10,000 years on this landscape, with nature providing the first foods that sustain us, as well as all of the gifts of nature that take care of our people, the shelter that we lived in, the hides that we dressed in, all of those things are provided by this homeland in great abundance. And so we were given a great place to live by the Creator.
Well, and it's beautiful. And one of the exhibits behind us, it has the different seasons.
Well, I'll tell you that in the seasons, we begin our new year on the winter solstice.
Okay.
And so on the winter solstice, we observe ceremonies so that we can prepare for the new foods that renew themselves each year. So the wild celery that grows in the mountains, the roots that will come in the spring, the salmon that will come home in the spring. As we process through the calendar today, the Gregorian calendar, we'll move into the time when the berries are ripe, high mountain roots are ready, and it's hunting season, and then we go back into the winter time of quiet, where most of the planet is at rest.
I love that.
And well, it's a time when animals hibernate.
Yes.
It's a time when animals are in gestation.
Yes.
And it's a time when we are in our winter villages historically, and we stay close to the fire, and we manufacture all winter long to be ready for spring.
And tell us about what we have right here on the horses.
Well, what we're seeing right behind us is a man dressed in his finery. His horse is decorated with a martingale and a beaded blanket. He's wearing beaded chaps or leggings and a capote or coat. He's got a loop necklace on made of hand-drilled shells and conch. And she's wearing a buckskin dress and has a buckskin blanket. And they both are wearing smoked buckskin moccasins. She has a corn husk bag around her saddle horn. She has a cradle board on the other side that's carrying her baby. She has a quirt, as does he. And these bonnet tubes are like suitcases that are behind her legs. And then on the horse behind her, we see a tule mat, a huckleberry basket, a wuppus. The huckleberry basket is made of coiled cedar roots, so it's a hard-sided basket to protect the integrity of the berries. The wuppus is a soft-sided bag that is made to gather roots in it. And they have a tule mat lodge and a root storage bag made of corn husk and dogbane. And these are pretty likely they're on their way to a wedding where there'll be a trade, and the men's side will provide men's things and the women's side will provide women's things.
Sure.
In our division of labor, in our social order, the groom's side presents meats and fishes that have been processed for storage for year-round use. The women's side would have processed berries and roots. So the berries and roots are sisters, the meats and fishes are brothers, and those would be among the things that are traded after a traditional wedding in the wedding trade.
Wow, so interesting. That's fascinating. And in this whole institute here, there are things like this that show the history, and you've just explained it because I wouldn't understand all of that as I walked by. So,
well, I like to tell people that these folks are traveling in their Sunday best.
Yes.
I mean, that they're dressed in their finery.
oh, beautiful. And you are wearing a beautiful beaded necklace. Tell us about that.
So a friend of mine who is a tribal member here of Cayuse ancestry makes these beautiful medallions, and they're in a very tiny bead, and she is an elder, and she has been making this finery all of her life.
Oh, how special. And your earrings, tell us about those.
These are made of conch.
Okay.
They're a trade item, and they have brass studs in them, and these are ancient trade items from the coast. So we traded, especially at Celilo, when the falls were still a very active, wild waterway. Celilo was the Wall Street of the West. It was one of 7 great trading hubs in North America for the whole continent. And that at Celilo, we could get shells from the ocean, abalone, the conch shell that I'm wearing on my ears, the mollusk shell, which is dentalium, and many other shells to decorate our lives.
Well, see, and that was my question, because I was thinking, okay, so here we are inland, you know, and I was thinking, okay, so how did the shells come as you were describing what she's wearing, and what you're wearing? Beautiful. So we're in the section of we were, and then there's a section we are. Tell us about that.
So we leave the We Were gallery by going through the trading post that was established in 1816 by the Northwest Company.
Okay.
And we traded there. Most of what they wanted to trade for was furs. We were more likely to provide them with food, wood, horses, and hides, buckskin and other hides for their use in making what they needed to make in the fort. Most of the trapping that was done here was done by the French-Canadian freemen who came out with first the Northwest Company, then the Hudson's Bay Company. And they would complete their contracts, and they would forego the bonus that they would if they went back to headquarters, and they would stay here, and they married, of course, the only women here who were Walla Walla and Cayuse women in the Walla Walla Valley. And that's how the town of Frenchtown came to be formed, was that the French-Canadian freemen who came out on the Saskatchewan River with the fur brigades would married here, and they set up homes here, and they would trap for the company in order for them to sustain their household.
So that's part of that section, and then the we will be. Tell us about that.
So as we go into who we are today, we have to go through the church, which tells the story of the arrival of the missionaries in the 1830s, both the Whitmans and the Spaldings. and then we make our way through the treaty ramp. And the Northern Railroad Survey was in 1852, came through this area, and then the treaty making in Walla Walla with the governor of the Washington Territory and the Indian Affairs Superintendent from the Oregon Territory meet with us, and they meet with the Nez Perce, Umatilla, Cayuse, Walla Walla, and Yakima bands in Walla Walla. The consequence of that treaty is that we cede 92% of our homeland with the idea that we will receive a 500,000 acre home reservation where we will be protected from bad white men, is the promise that's made. As it turns out, the treaty, 512,000 acres promised, immediately is sliced into 250,000 acres by a survey line that we still disagree with, made by the United States government in 1871. And then as we leave the treaty area, we go through the boarding school. And the boarding school, like the missionary intent, is really important for me to point out that there is, in and of itself, Christianity and in and of itself, education are not problems in society. They are usually solutions in the eyes of most people. But when they're weaponized against people to change who the people are and to break down their social fabric and to change their identity, they become destructive. And so as we leave the boarding school, we then go through the last zone of the decline, not only of our vast thousands of wild horses, but also the decline of our communal economy and our communal identity as World War II and Korea claimed some of our soldiers. The inundation of Celilo Falls in 1957, as well as the Relocation Act, sort of change our social fabric.
Absolutely.
When you walk into We Are, it's a very small, busy gallery, and what that gallery proclaims is the fact that not only are we still here to tell our story, but that we're working on rebuilding our tribe into a thriving, restored, recovered community where economic development, social development, cultural development are all in the works. We had a prophecy that was told when Lewis and Clark came on their way home in 1806. They were camped with a headman on the Columbia River who asked them to stay a little longer in his camp so that he could gather people from all around the neighboring villages and tell the story of this prophecy that strange people would come amongst us and that we would face difficult times, and that if we survived the difficult times, we would become strong again. And so we hope that what we're living today is the prophecy that we're becoming strong again. And that's the story of the We Are Gallery, is our health and our protectors, our veterans and policemen, as well as the recovery of the salmon. And then we leave the restoration of salmon and mussels and go into the We Will Be Gallery. And that's where we talk about what we hope for the future, that our languages will be strong still, that our students that are in school now will become the future leaders of our tribe, and they will know not only their cultural teachings from our ancient existence, but also be technically skilled and wise in modern ways of doing battle on behalf of not only all the species that live here, but the people who live here as we face climate change and climate adaptation.
Yes, and wow, we could certainly talk for so much longer about all of this because these are all very serious things to address. And when someone comes here, what do you want them to leave with after they've been through all these sections of the Institute?
Two messages. We want them to understand that we have a very specific and unique identity as cultural people, and that we still have that cultural identity that's distinct and matches this homeland. Our identity comes from the land upon which we are raised. And that we are resilient, that we have not been conquered, and that we are very much today a nation to be reckoned with, that we still retain our leadership and our voice and our ability to do battle for all of the important things that face us.
And the important things that you stand for and that are in your history. Absolutely. Yes. And I want to, as we close, please help us to know, again, how to say the name of the institute.
Tamástslikt.
Tamástslikt, okay. And you're open what days?
Tuesday through Saturday,
Okay.
10 to 5 p.m.
Okay.
First Friday of every month is free admission to the exhibits,
Okay.
as well as Indian tacos and Kinship Cafe.
Oh, yum.
And fry bread and salmon corn chowder as well.
Okay.
And Tamástslikt in the Walulapum dialect of Sahaptin is a replacement for the word interpret or interpreter. It means turn over, turn around. And because it's the only interpretive center on the Oregon Trail from a Native point of view, it is Tamástslikt Cultural Institute, because we turn the story around, the story of westward expansion from our point of view.
Well, that explains it, and I like that. Oftentimes we do have to do a turnaround in our lives, don't we?
Yes. Well, I think one of our claims to fame is that we are the only interpretive center on the entire National Historic Oregon Trail that is from a tribal perspective.
Okay.
And being tribally owned and operated is one of the things that we're really proud of.
Okay. And you're on Facebook and,
yes, we are.
And web address?
www.tamástslikt.org, and it's TAMASTSLIKT.org.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Bobby, for helping educate us on many things. And I hope that more people can come and learn as I have here today. And thank you for being on Hometown.
Thank you, Julie. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Laura, thanks for taking a little bit of time to talk with me today. Here we are at the Whitman Mission, a wonderful historic site. Very important for us to have to think about those stories. And maybe some people who are watching aren't actually that familiar with the story or what brought the Whitmans to Walla Walla area.
Yeah.
If you could share.
So the Whitmans came out here to the Walla Walla area, which at the time they arrived in 1836 had a few different names. Waiiletpu was a Nez Perce name for it. Pashko is another Cayuse name for this valley. And they arrived out here because they are Christian missionaries. They're Protestant Presbyterian missionaries. And they've been asked to come out here by a local band of Cayuse people, the Pashkapu. Both of the Whitmans grew up in New York State, always wanting to be missionaries, and they ended up working for the American Board of Commissioners for Foreign Missions. And so they helped assign missionaries to different locations. And you'll notice foreign missions is included in that title because at the time this was not yet United States land. So this was a foreign mission for them.
Very, very interesting. So yeah, they're going out as missionaries. Something they had wanted to do, you're saying, like sort of a passion for them to do that. Okay. So for those who aren't familiar, we know that the Whitmans did die here, and maybe you can just give us sort of a summary, hopefully encompassing multiple perspectives.
Yeah, so the Whitmans arrived out here in 1836, and like I said, they were invited by this local Pashkapu band of Cayuse. And at first, the relationships between the Whitmans and the Cayuse were pretty good, but over time, that relationship will deteriorate when both of these groups realize they have really different expectations about what's going to happen out here. The Whitmans are asking these Cayuse families to make a lot of huge changes to their lifestyle, to their religion and their culture that they already have. The Whitmans are wanting them to completely adopt Christianity and forego those old ways. And a lot of these families are not willing to make those big changes. And over time, interest is going to kind of peter out in the mission. And Whitman is going to sort of change his purpose in being out here to trying to help another group of people, which is Oregon Trail immigrants. By the early to mid 1840s, Oregon Trail immigrants are coming out this way, and the mission goes from being really a mission to the Cayuse to being a way station for Oregon Trail immigrants instead, because he has grains and supplies he can sell to the Oregon Trail immigrants, and he's also helping administer medicine to sick Oregon Trail immigrants, which a lot of them have measles. And Marcus Whitman is not just a missionary, but he's also trained as a medical doctor, and he's helping these people in the best way that he can. Most of those Oregon Trail immigrants who have measles get better, they recover and move on. But the Cayuse families who are living here too, right next door, when they start contracting measles and coming to Whitman for treatment, most of the time they don't get better. and about 50% of this local Cayuse village will die from measles. So that's about 250, most of them being children and elderly people. And because we, back in the 1840s, didn't understand immunity and why the white people were getting better, but the Cayuse people were dying, a theory emerges that Marcus Whitman is poisoning the Cayuse people and intentionally killing them. We know today that that's not what was happening, but that's just, the theory at the time with the information that's available to them. So tensions will really rise out here, and many people begin to tell the Whitmans that they're in danger and they need to leave, but the Whitmans don't want to leave. They want to stay out here and continue helping these Oregon Trail immigrants. And these tensions will culminate in 1847 with an attack on the mission by a very small group of Cayuse men. They'll kill Marcus and Narcissa Whitman along with 11 other adult men who were here at the time. There are about 50 other women and children who are not killed in the attack. They're held hostage for about a month before they're let go. Their ransom is paid by the Hudson's Bay Company.
A tragic story.
Absolutely.
Really, all the way around.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And we now have this site preserved here for us to think about those things. As people come through the Whitman Mission, what are you hoping they learn as far as perspectives and thinking about this tragedy that happened here?
Yeah, so I think having the multiple perspectives to learn about this history is so crucial because it's really complex and complicated. I just tried to condense it down to a couple of minutes, but it's so sticky, and you can't really understand the full picture of why this is important and why it mattered without looking at all sides to this story here. So I think that this place, as you walk around here and you see some of our interpretive waysides, so the panels we have around the park presenting the Cayuse perspective on this story, is a way for people to maybe look at it in a new way that they hadn't considered before, and to really think critically about history. It's things, maybe the facts of what happened here haven't changed, but seeing it from a different side can change how you view it and how you internalize it.
So Laura, it's getting a little bit windy out here, so let's actually go indoors and finish our talk there.
Sure, we can head to the visitor center.
So when people come here to the park, there's a lot that they can see and experience. Can you talk to us a little bit about what we've got here?
Yeah, there's a lot of good ways to get engaged with the history here at the site. So we're now in the visitor center where we've got a couple of things to do. We have that 25-minute film that does a great job of showing multiple perspectives to this history. We also have museum exhibits, and those include artifacts from the site, as well as different cultural objects as well. Outside, we've got about a mile of trails that go around the site. There's a trail that goes up to the top of the hill where there's a monument. There's a trail that takes you around the mission site where you can see the foundations of all the original mission buildings. The foundations are still here today, buried underground, but they're outlined above ground with bricks that you can walk around and see. We, in the summer, have ranger guided programs available to the public. They're free, and we often walk around the mission site and talk about the history here. For kids and families, we have programs like setting up a teepee and learning about native plateau culture and plateau style teepees and their importance both historically and still today. We also have a junior ranger program available for kids, which if you are a national parks visitor, you know they have these at all the sites across the country. You can get your junior ranger badge, and by doing those junior ranger books, the kids can get really into the history here too.
And just outside where we were standing when we were out there, we were standing on some sort of well-worn tracks. Is it actually the Oregon Trail?
Yeah, so we are not on the actual Oregon Trail, which is about 40 miles south of here, but that is a real detour that people would take off the Oregon Trail. People would come off the Oregon Trail to the mission site from around 1843 to 1847 to get medical attention, food, and supplies. So a lot of people would travel right across that trail where we now have visitors walk today.
Coming for support that they probably felt desperate for after many, many long months on the trail.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So you've been here about 2.5 years, yes? And you also worked previously at another historic site. So what's that like for you? What are you taking away? What are you learning about perspectives?
Yeah, I've learned so much since being here. I've learned a lot about working with different tribes and learning about their histories. And one thing that's been really interesting to me as a parks person, a park ranger who loves being in the outdoors and in the wilderness, is that we love this idea of wilderness, but it's something that doesn't really exist because all of these places around us are all known and they're all named by the native people who've lived here for thousands of years. All of these places that we think of as wild
Yes.
are places that are very well known to many people and were used for different reasons for thousands of years. So just understanding the historical contents, the cultural significance of these places has helped me when I'm here, but also when I'm visiting other national parks across the country.
Thanks, Laura. It's been great chatting with you.
Yeah, you too.
Seattle Seahawks legendary wide receiver Doug Baldwin once said, "The greatest tragedy for any human being is going through their entire lives believing the only perspective that matters is their own." It's so easy to fall into the fast, cheap, and easy trap of dumping people into good guy, bad guy buckets and wander away self-satisfied. But that doesn't do a good job of growing our character. I'm so inspired by discovering the Waiilapu story from multiple perspectives. It reminds me that one of the critical moments in the Bible is when Jesus asked us to love our enemies. If you love those who love you, what reward will you get? And if you greet only your own people, what are you doing more than others? What a sobering ask. It's easy to love people we get naturally. It's a lot more complicated to love people we disagree with or are very different than ourselves. I encourage you to visit Whitman Mission and Tamástslikt Cultural Institute. If you've gone once, go again. You'll have an incredible opportunity to consider perspectives in the stories you know and discover ways to connect with people different from ourselves. What a beautiful place we all call home. When you visit Whitman Mission, make the trip to the top of the hill. Take in the big picture. It's definitely worth it. See you next week on our next episode of Hometown.